You know, there's something I've been thinking about lately. Have you ever been sitting with your grandkids, maybe during a holiday dinner or a Sunday afternoon visit, and felt like your world's apart? They're tapping away on their phones, laughing at videos you don't quite understand, and you're sitting there thinking, how do I even start a conversation that matters? I get it. It's not that they don't care. It's just that life moves so fast these days. But here's the thing. Your stories, your love, the life you've lived, that's a gift they'll carry long after we're gone. And sharing those stories? It's not just about the past. It's about giving them roots, showing them what resilience looks like, and maybe even helping them navigate their own relationships someday. Today, we're talking about how to bridge that gap, how to share your love story in ways that'll make your grandkids lean in, put down their phones, and really see you. Not as grandma or grandpa, but as a person who's lived, loved, and learned a thing or two. We'll walk through 4 heartfelt ways to do this, and I promise, it's easier than you think. Let's start with the first. You don't need a fancy occasion to share your story. In fact, the best moments happen when they least expect it. Say you're baking cookies together, or maybe fixing a leaky faucet. Those everyday tasks are golden opportunities. Here's what I mean. Last summer, my granddaughter Mia was helping me plant roses in the garden. As we dug into the soil, I told her about the first time her grandfather tried to surprise me with a bouquet and accidentally bought me weed killer instead of flowers. Chuckles. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped the shovel. But then she asked, "How did you know he was the one?" And just like that, we weren't just planting roses. We were talking about patience, forgiveness, and how love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, even when things get messy. So next time you're with your grandkids, try this. Weave a tiny piece of your story into whatever you're doing together. It doesn't have to be profound. Start with something silly, surprising, or downright honest. You'll be amazed how quickly they'll want to hear more. Now, this one's close to my heart. A few years ago, my grandson Jake found this old box in my attic. Inside were love letters my husband wrote me during his army days, a ticket stub from our first movie date, and a dried-up corsage from our 10th anniversary. Jake sat cross-legged on the floor for hours, asking questions about every little thing. Here's the magic. When you involve them in curating a memory box, it's like handing them a treasure map to your heart. You're not just telling them you loved someone, you're showing them how. Start small. Grab a shoebox, an old jar, anything. Fill it with items that tell a snippet of your story. A recipe card from your wedding cake, a postcard from a trip you took together, even a mixtape, if you can find a player for it. Then, invite your grandkids to add their own items over time. Maybe a doodle they drew, a ticket from a ball game you attended together. Suddenly, it's not just your story. It's theirs too. And here's the beautiful part. Every time they open that box, they'll remember the afternoon you spent laughing over your terrible 70s fashion choices or the way your voice softened when you talked about their grandpa. That's how legacies are built, one shared memory at a time. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What if they don't care? What if I'm just old news? Let me tell you something. The day my Jake asked to take that memory box to college with him, I realized they're hungrier for these stories than we think. They just need us to hand them the breadcrumbs. And guess what? We've only just begun. There are 2 more ways I want to share with you. Simple, heartfelt strategies that'll deepen these connections even further. But for now, why not start with what we've covered? Pick a moment this week, a car ride, a game of cards, even a video call, and let one little story slip in. Watch how their eyes light up when they realize your love story is their story too. You know, after we chatted last time, I got the sweetest email from a viewer named Margaret. She'd tried the memory box idea with her grandson. Only instead of old letters, she added a cassette tape of her and her late husband slow dancing to their song. Guess what happened? That boy hunted down a cassette player at a thrift store just to hear it. Stories have a way of sticking, don't they? Especially when we let them live in more than just our hearts. So let's keep that momentum going with 2 more ways to weave your love story into their world, starting with something you might have thought was just for techie folks. I'll bet you've got a stash of old photos tucked away, wedding portraits, vacation snapshots, maybe even a Polaroid of that time you 2 got caught in the rain. Those aren't just pictures, they're doorways. Last Christmas, my niece asked about this photo. Instead of just saying, "Oh, that's us in '78, I said, "That's the day your grandpa learned I was terrified of motorcycles, so he pushed this one halfway across town just to make me laugh. Her eyes got wide. Wait, you were scared? But you seem so brave. Here's the trick. Don't just show the photo. Tell the story behind the smile. Then, and this is the golden part, ask them to take a selfie with you right now. Not just any selfie. One where you're making the same silly face, holding hands like you did back then, or recreating that iconic pose. Suddenly, your history isn't gathering dust in an album. It's alive, it's playful, and, bonus, it's now saved on their phone, ready to be shared with friends. That's how you become more than a grandparent. You become a legend. Now, this one's for all my fellow kitchen magicians. See this recipe? It's for your grandpa's infamous, fireproof chili, the one that nearly burned down our apartment in '82. Every time I make it, I think of his panic dance with the fire extinguisher and how he still swore it was just a little smoky. Invite your grandkids to cook with you, but don't just teach them the recipe. Teach them the story in every sprinkle. When you add the cinnamon to the chili, tell them how your partner always claimed it was the secret to love. When you need bread dough, share how you'd argue over who made the better loaf and always ended up laughing with flour in your hair. Food is memory's favorite transporter. One bite of that chili, and my grandkids aren't just tasting peppers. They're tasting resilience, humor, and the kind of love that survives smoke alarms. So dig out that stained recipe card, bake those lopsided cookies, and let the stories rise with the dough. You know, I used to worry that sharing these stories was selfish, like I was asking them to care about a time they'll never know. But then my granddaughter said something that changed everything. She told me, when you talk about Grandpa, I don't just miss him. I feel like I know who I am. That's the power of what you're doing. You're not just passing down memories. You're giving them a compass, a way to navigate their own love stories long after we're gone. And trust me, they're listening, even when they're rolling their eyes, even when they're halfway out the door. So keep going, keep weaving, because whether it's through a smoky chili pot or a goofy selfie, you're not just bridging the gap between generations. You're building a bridge through time. You know, there's a quote I've carried with me for years. It says, "Stories are the way we teach children how to be human." But lately, I've started thinking, maybe they're also how we remind ourselves that we're still here, still alive, still capable of love that surprises even us. When we started this conversation, I told you about my granddaughter Mia and the roses, about Jake and that memory box. But here's what I didn't say. The first time I tried sharing a story, I froze. My voice shook. I thought, what if she thinks I'm silly? What if he doesn't care? And you know what? Mia did laugh at first, not at the story, but at how serious my face looked. Then she hugged me and said, "Grandma, you're like a real-life superhero." That's the thing about love stories. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be yours. And when you share them, through recipes, photos, memory boxes, or even a silly selfie, you're not just giving your grandkids a peek into your past. You're giving them permission to be brave in their own lives, to love fiercely, messily, and without apology. So let me leave you with this. Your story isn't over. Not by a long shot. Every time you laugh with your grandkids over burned chili or a goofy dance move, you're adding a new chapter. One they'll retell someday, maybe to their grandkids, with the same twinkle in their eyes. And if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I don't have a grand love story? Oh, my friend, love isn't just romance. It's the friend who stood by you during your darkest hour. The sibling who made you laugh until milk came out your nose. The neighbor who taught you how to grow tomatoes. And patience. Those stories matter just as much. So start small. Start today. Leave a sticky note on the fridge with a one-sentence memory. Today in 1974, I learned to love thunderstorms. Text them a blurry pic of your old hiking boots with the caption, "These walked 500 miles, and then I met your grandpa." Don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is now, even if it's through a crackly phone call or a scribbled letter in their lunchbox. And when you do, promise me something. Come back here and tell us how it went. Share your wins, your flops, the way your grandson groaned. "Grandpa, not the chilly story again." Then secretly asked for seconds. This community? It's not just about me talking. It's about us, learning from each other, cheering each other on, and remembering that love, in all its forms, is the loudest legacy we'll ever leave. Before I let you go, I want to thank you for showing up, for daring to believe that your story, your glorious, imperfect, resilient story, is worth telling. And if you found even one nugget here that made you think, maybe I'll try that, do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button. Because we've got so much more to share, stories, strategies, and maybe even a few surprises that'll make your grandkids say, wait, you did what? Here's to your love story, to theirs, and to all the chapters still waiting to be written together.